The record show the quorum of board members is present and that this meeting has been duly called and that notice of this meeting has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meeting Act, Texas Government Code Chapter 551. I wish to extend a warm welcome to everyone present. Citizens may make comments about topics relevant to district business. The topic should be limited to 3 minutes. Comments concerning specific students or personnel will be heard in closed session. I ask that you please turn off any sound on any electronic devices. And at this time, please stand for the pledge, which is coming to us from Fannin Elementary.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. On honor of the Texas flag, I pledge allegiance to these Texas, one state under God, one indivisible.
Thank you, Fannin. Great reporting. At this time, do we have any citizens' comments? No. Okay. And then we'll move right down into the spotlight. And first up is our elementary teacher of the month. And I believe Principal Garza Ramirez. Yeah. All right. They try to keep me informed, but it's always kind of who's doing the introduction. It's always a gap there.
Hi, good evening. Woman Teacher of the Month is Morgan Kapana. She's a third grade math and science teacher for bilingual program, and she's been with Henderson for 5 years now, and she is amazing, and she always loves all the students. She helps with PBIS and collaborative meetings and soccer teams, so all the students just love going to her classroom all the time. So she is really well deserving of this honor, and I am so proud of her.
I also want to thank and welcome BBT for their generous donation to the Teacher of the Month program.
Does the baby need to be in the picture? Absolutely. Bring these. Oh, got a cookie. And you got a cookie like that is the way to do it. Turn the other way. Turn the other way.
And next, I'd like to welcome up Assistant Principal Becky Luna for the Secondary Teacher of the Month from Davila Middle School.
We really just keep you guys guessing who's going to come from Davila. Thank you so much for this opportunity to really recommend one of our outstanding educators. This is Uria Laura, and she teaches PE at Davila in addition to coaching. In addition to, she teaches 3 classes of intervention, ELA intervention, not just a basic intervention. And in addition to that, she has developed this year a program which is Partners in PE. And the Partners in PE takes our students who are in our life skills sales program and partners them with another student so they can participate in the activities in PE. It is such a heartwarming opportunity to see our students grow when they work with other students, and also for our students who might not have participated to have the opportunity to participate. Maybe they're in a wheelchair, maybe they don't quite understand the games. It is so awesome to see. You never see her that she doesn't have a smile on her face. She reminds me of the Energizer Bunny that always has a smile and she's always ready. What do you need me to do? What are we going to do next? It's what every school needs, and I want to thank you for the opportunity to share her time and talent with Bryan ISD. Thank you.
And I know that some of her colleagues are here in support.
We have a whole 2 rows worth.
Yay! They just left track practice.
Yes, this older one was saying the pledge and the pledge. Everybody smiling? Thank you.
I know at least one of her colleagues that coaches track is a former Bryan Viking that ran track at Bryan High. So, what a great group.
Yeah, it was a tricky shoot. Which one of y'all were gonna introduce going back? There's like 3 of y'all here that could do the job, so.
So at this point, I have the pleasure of introducing Coach Mike Zito to you guys, and he's going to speak to you about our state champion wrestler, Nick Gorman.
Been here a few times over the years, recognize a lot of you, some were parents. But Nick, I got this call earlier last summer. Hey, my son wrestles, and I think we're moving to Texas. Tell me about your wrestling program. And they came in, and we looked around, he saw the gym, and next thing I knew, he was here. And they say, oh yeah, he's been wrestling for a few years. And definitely missed an undefeated season by 1 match in double overtime. I think he could get it. I think it was a fluke. But definitely brings a bit of class to the room, leads by example, and all the cliches when it comes to that, but he is a great kid. He's also in our sports medicine program, so when he hurts himself, he knows what to do. I also want to take a second to introduce this gentleman. He is one of my ex-wrestlers. He is now, I call him heir apparent. This is Victor Thomas. He wrestled for me. Graduated in 2011. My plans, I'm going to stay around. I'm not going anywhere, but I'm going to go 1 more year as a head coach. I'm going to pass the baton and just step back and be his assistant coach for a couple years, and then just kind of fade into the background. I don't know what I'm going to do yet. But this is Nick Gorman, the 2022 126-pound 6A state champion.
And I know his parents are here, so if they would like to get some pictures, and then maybe they want to be in some pictures.
I bet he can take it.
I know, I want to be in it too.
I think we're all coming down, so.
What a good meeting.
All right, and moving on from Spotlight, we'll move into an information item on the redistricting the trustee districts based on the 2020 census data.
Thank you, sir. The second phase of our looking at the redistricting for the member districts tonight. Mr. Sidfall is here to look at some maps, potential examples, and then maybe draw some other ones if we want to. We can look at that too. I think you have hard copies of the samples there for you, and I'll turn it over to Mr. Falk.
Good evening. Drew, can you hear me?
Yes.
Come on.
We got
There
you.
we go.
Drew?
He said,
Okay.
I'm here.
If you will start by showing the initial assessment current districts.
Well, before we do that, are these the ones that were sent to us for our preview?
Yeah, they will be.
Right, because I think they already came to us. Haven't these already come to us? Okay.
All right, what you're looking at first is your current districts, just to remind you what they look like. More important, Drew, will you show the total population summary table? All right. This was in your initial assessment report, and it summarizes the current status of your districts. You will recall that federal law requires that your single-member districts have approximately the same population. Courts have recognized that a 10% variance from the most populous to the least populous is acceptable to satisfy that requirement. More than 10%, and you need to redistrict. So what this table reflects, district by district, is the departure of each district, which you look in the column labeled deviation. What we've done is to compare the current actual population of each district to an ideal district size, which would be the district population if they were all exactly the same. You make that comparison and define a deviation in terms of a percentage of departure from that ideal size. You look at the most populous and the least populous of those districts and ask whether the sum of those deviations is bigger than 10%. So the most populous of your districts is District 3 at 12.3% overpopulated, and the least populated district is District 1 at almost 10% underpopulated. You add those two together, and if you look in the table, the slide at the very lower left, you'll see the overall deviation currently is about 22%, which is larger than the 10% that's permitted, and so the lesson is you have to redistrict. What I've brought, or what is sent to you and brought tonight to show you, are two example plans. They're just that, they're examples. They are meant to get you thinking, both to illustrate to you what kind of changes, the magnitude, and the sort of character of possible changes might be appropriate to bring your districts back in population balance. And they're to get you thinking. There's nothing magic about them. We tried to make the fewest changes possible and produce a balanced plan. And by balanced plan, I mean one where the deviation from most populous to least populous is less than 10%. So Drew, if you will show draft plan A, the map. what you're looking at is got two elements that I think are important. The red lines are the current districts. The colors define the new plan, the new example plan. So it's possible to look at the red lines, and anytime that you see a color bleeding over the red line, that represents an area that's been changed. So for instance, if you look at the very central part of the map, you will see that the District 1 bleeds over slightly in its very eastern side into what used to be District 2. There's a very slight area there that's transferred from District 2 to District 1. And in turn, District 2 bleeds over into that very southwestern portion, the central city portion of District 3, and picks up a little area there. Because both of those areas are in the center part of the city, there's a lot of population. So it's a small area, but it represents a fairly large population change. And a larger change is made between Districts 3 and 4. You will see that where in the very southern part of District 3, it bleeds over the current district line and takes some area from District 4. Drew, will you quickly show the total population summary table, please? All right, if you look in the lower left corner of, not the table, but the narrative at the bottom left, you'll see that the overall deviation of this plan is 8.2%. So this plan is balanced and would satisfy the legal requirement. In particular, you can look and see what the overall deviations are for each of the districts. And each of them, you will notice, is within a 5% deviation from the ideal size. Drew, if you would show Plan B. We took a slightly different approach here. The approach with Plan A was to make the changes to the extent possible in the populated central area of the district. Here, we have made some changes primarily, but not entirely, in the more rural suburban areas. And so what you see again is anytime a color bleeds over one of those red lines that represent the current districts, that means a transfer of area has been made. In particular, District 2 has moved northward and taken a large territorial area from what was District 3. That's right where the District 2 number is by happenstance. District 3, having lost some population there, needs to give up a little bit more, and District 4 grows northward across the former District 3 boundary. And there are a couple of minor changes, although major population impacts, in the central part of the city where District 1 has given up a very small area to District 5 and gained a small area from District 4. Drew, if you'll show the table. So this plan is within 10% of total deviation at 8.97%, and each of the district deviations is within plus or minus 5%, give or take. Notice that you don't have to actually have every district within that plus or minus 5%. It's possible, as in this plan, where District 4 is at 5.4% underpopulated, to do that as long as the most overpopulated district that compensates for that is not larger than 4.5%, give or take. So it's the sum, not the individual districts, that matter. And these are just two example plans. I will say that we tried to draw a couple of plans that attempted to follow city limit lines and city single-member district boundaries, and I will show them to you if you want to see them. They're very messy. These plans are much cleaner because they're not trying to accomplish more than the purpose of balancing your population. I understand there was some incentive or desire to try to follow the city's lines, but the city's districts are substantially different in overall shape because the city is very oddly shaped. It has some very long extensions within its city limits, and those shapes don't really lend themselves to being mimicked by your more substantial and rounded districts, if you will, even though they're not rounded. So you can like or dislike any of these plans. We have the capability of opening either Plan A or Plan B into our redistricting software and showing you on the screen and changing the boundaries in real time if you want to draw.
I like B. I like B.
I
like B.
I like B.
Would you go back to the demographics for draft Plan A for a moment?
I'm sorry.
The demographics, the chart for draft Plan A?
Drew, the total pop chart for Plan A, please.
Just looking at the numbers there, I noticed that 3 was a little over 4% above, and I don't know if that means that it would have less stability long-term, and maybe that's not a big deal, but it probably continues to be a fairly high-growth area. It seems to me, that suggests to me that, I guess you could say that Plan B would also be maybe a little more durable in terms of staying within the guidelines. I know that's 10 years off, but you know what I'm trying to say? Because it's 4.34% over. And again, it obviously was a pretty high growth district in the past 10 years. Am I making any sense to you?
No, absolutely. Lots of jurisdictions want to try to anticipate growth in a particular area. And the temptation, and it's a good conceptual one, is to try to slightly underpopulate the district that you think is going to show substantial population growth, so that 10 years from now, you won't have as big a problem,
Right.
presumably shedding people, because it will become overpopulated if you get the growth that you expect. Let me say that your ideal district size is about 20,000. 10% of that is 2,000. 5% of that is 1,000. And so, in a sense, you have a sort of plus or minus 5% leeway in trying to balance the districts. And so, really, all you're able to do by underpopulating a district is gain about 1,000 persons worth of leverage of future planning, which may not be trivial, but it can be a lot of work to underpopulate that particular district, and the reward is not necessarily what you hope for.
I mean, it sounds like, and Mr. Sasney, if you're pointing out this issue, that you feel kind of, we're not voting, it's just information only. So, but Plan B, the draft Plan B would be closer to I guess, not having that same issue necessarily. And I know that we're going to talk about it more in closed session than to kind of specifics, but before we get to that point, I'm not sure if anybody needs to see any additional details, but I do want to, there is the next step is a public forum, right, or coming, I mean, the community has a chance to weigh in on this as well.
Yeah, the sequence that we've suggested and talked about with you before is to have one or more drawing sessions of the kind we can have tonight if you want. to arrive at a plan that all of you kind of nod your heads, yes, doesn't have to be unanimous, but that you kind of agree is a suitable plan to ask the public to comment on, that you're serious about this particular version of the plan. You would ask for public comments either in the form of written comments submitted to you, or more likely in the form of one or more public hearings where you take comments. And then you have the opportunity to look at those comments and consider them and decide whether you need to make any additional changes to the map that you have proposed for comment. And we would have another drawing session to allow you to do that before you go to final adoption.
So what I'm hearing is Plan B would be that head shake at this point in time.
If anybody has questions about Plan B or difficulties with some piece of it, we can open the plan in the redistricting software and do zooming in and show you the particular areas and so on that you may have questions about, so don't be bashful.
I appreciate Mr. Beesaw printing. I know he printed these to make it, I mean, technologically it's good, but having these side by side, thank you for doing that for us.
Yeah, I also appreciated the opportunity to look at these earlier.
Yeah.
And just thinking about what do we have now and, you know, what's different about these options. And yeah, I appreciated that. Thank you.
All right, I don't know if you've hit the home run just yet, but as far as I think, I don't know if I have any other questions on Plan B right now.
Okay. Thank you very much for your
All right.
attention.
Thank you. Okay, at this time, we will move down into standing committee updates, starting with city school.
Yes. So we had the opportunity, feels like it's been so long now, but to have a city school meeting at Big Shots, which was,
It's not a meeting.
that was very much so.
I want on that 100% not a meeting.
But we had the opportunity to meet at Big Shots and enjoy a meal. And although this was the city school meeting where we were updating one another, I think Coach Tullis took a large portion of this meeting, and it was a great opportunity for many members of the city. And we had a pretty large crowd, probably about 13 or 14 of us.
That's a golf place.
Hey. But it was a great opportunity for all of them to actually talk to Coach Tullis, and he once again personally gave his vision for the city. There was a round of introductions, of course, but they all were able to speak about their history in Bryan, and it was just a conversation about their stories being here at Bryan High, and they were able to talk about things that they would like to see incorporated here, different goals that Coach Tullis had for the district, which included updating many of the facilities, and that just sparked an entire conversation about locker rooms and wrestling and flooring and racks and so forth, and a number of things that I really didn't understand. But it was a great, we talked a little bit about Midtown Park, but I think this meeting really gave them an opportunity to talk directly with Coach Tullis and give a great update on what he visions for the city, and how he wants to develop these relationships, starting with elementary school all the way up to high school. So it was a great meeting. And like I say, Coach Tullis took the brunt of that, the most of that time.
So if at the next city school meeting, y'all are going to introduce this new superintendent at Topgolf, please share the info.
At Big Shots.
For Big Shots?
Which sounds like the board should be there. I'm thinking.
It's city school.
Yeah, if the city is the one that arranged that, so, because that's their project, and we're very
I'm just saying, we're going to introduce the new superintendent. I mean,
We should have it at a boutique then.
And the one thing that he did say, Deidre, that was
promising and really, to me, it really sounded good. It made it unity. Is that so often we always think of the two separate high schools, Bryan High and we think of Rudder. But to hear him say that he wanted to work with Eric Esau at Rudder and make that to be a friendship, a mutual thing. Because you have cousins and what have you that go to Bryan High, and then you have sons go to Rudder, and it's always a rival. But to hear him say that we're two different schools, but we're one district, and they're going to work together to make Bryan ISD to be powerful, that's what I like. That stood out to me. That they're going to be unity, not division.
And another thing, too, was a discussion about what these students were gonna do, because they're athletes, 365 student athletes, and what they were gonna do in off-season, so actually putting them in other sports as well, broadening those skills as well. So it was just a great conversation about surrounding our students. It was good.
Okay, intergovernmental.
We met this last Monday, and the agenda started with a really good win. I know Mayor Mooney from College Station, who typically leads the meeting because it's both boards from both school districts and entities, the Sheriff's Department, Police Department. It's just a really good meeting for a lot, like it says, the intergovernmental. And Mayor Mooney, within the last several years, he experienced the loss of his wife. And one of the things that was so drastic for him was how long it took to get the medical examiner in Austin, I believe is where she was, and get the death certificate and everything taken care of, and during the loss and the sorrow. And he said, we can do better than that. And he has really been trying to get our county to get a medical examiner's office, and we are. And so through the great process that he set in place and other people in our area, we are in the near future getting a medical examiner's office here for our county. And I mean, it's just a wonderful, wonderful thing for us. And so it was great to hear that that is an actuality now. A big thing that took a lot of time, and I can get long-winded, but this goes exactly along with these new maps of redistricting, is with the infrastructure bill that was passed in Washington, our area got a lot of money. I said our area, the south part of Texas, there's been this project to dredge the port of Lamarck. Anyway, where it's going to be the biggest port in the south. And as they unload those ships, we're right smack dab in the middle of the transportation hub from the south part of Texas up to the north, east, and west part of the United States. And it's going to be called I-14, an interstate that's going to come straight up to Highway 6. It's going to meet Highway 21, go east and west, and the trains will go the same route. It's almost like science fiction, but it's going to happen within the next 20 years. It's just, they did a survey that if you're on Highway 45, at any moment in time, there's a 12% chance you could come to a dead stop on 45. They did that survey on Highway 6, and there's only an 8% chance that at any point in time you would come to a dead stop. So Highway 6-1, however that goes, and between now and 15 to 20 years before it's all going to come to pass. They have to do the environmental study, they have to find orchids, they have to find worms, they have to find little plants and make sure that everything is okay, but it's going to happen, and we're going to be right in the middle of it. And we are going to have a loop. It's going to be 214 around Bryan College Station. So when you come up 6, if you don't need to come through the big business part of 6, which will be probably 6 lanes by then, it's just, and I live right off the bypass, so I'm, expecting a lot of changes. But this loop is going to go, it's going to create a path from Highway 21 around to Highway 30. So it's going to connect the east and west portion of this new interstate. And I know, like this map that we were just talking about, and one of the reasons I was very interested in how it all pans out is the loop will come right around our portion and probably right through some of our districts. And so the housing, the commercial, the need for schools, people that'll be moving in, I mean, it's just going, and I have copies for us to be thinking about that. But it's just, it's one of those blow your mind things that's going to happen, and it is going to happen. And so for your children and your grandchildren, if they stay in this area, someday you're going to think, I was at a board meeting when that crazy blonde lady started talking about this bypass and this thing, and it's actually happened. So we're going to plan. We're going to plan for the future for our schools and our population explosion. Anyway, so that was a very interesting part of, and the money's there, and the studies have already started, so that's going to happen too. And then there was a brief little discussion from the health department, and Felicia, who is retired and now works for the health department, and so she's one of those people that retired and is working harder than when she was not retired. If there's anything you want, it was just a brief little input.
We celebrated the 2-year anniversary on the 17th, and so we've been looking at the data since then. And right now, we're at 53, well, that Monday, we're at 53.7% in Brazos County being fully vaccinated. Until that date, we've had 54,462 cases. And that was last Monday. The numbers look a lot different today than they did. They change a little bit every day. But really, we're working on, because every time we think we've got the ace ball, we got it under control, a new variant comes out. So right now, we've had a meeting, we're waiting to see when we'll be getting the 4th shot, which is coming as soon as it gets approved. There'll be a 4th shot that will be given out. So a lot of changes still going on, a lot of virus still going on, just day by day thing. We're just taking it one day at a time.
All right, yeah. Finance Committee,
How much time do we have left?
about 30 seconds.
Ours was Zoom, and there was no food, it was,
No golf.
no golf, a lot of hard work, and we did talk about a lot of important stuff, but, it was not nearly as glamorous. We heard about end-of-year ceremonies, and that based on surveys, those may change somewhat this year. I won't go into any details on that. I think that's still a work in progress. Construction renovation, heard a lot from Paul Buckner. That continues to be a real challenge with prices continuing to go up. And Paul, of course, is trying hard to figure out a way to get us closer to budget, and trying to cut costs without cutting quality is always a huge challenge. There's talk about, like, for instance, paving, which is extremely expensive right now compared to what it normally would be. By just doing what we really feel like we need now, and then just simply delaying some of the paving for the future when it's actually needed, which may be a good ways down the road. Some people might argue, well, it's never going to go down, but there are a lot of people that recognize that we're in unusual times, and it's very possible and even likely that a lot of these costs are going to hopefully go down in the not too distant future. So there was that, and other things are looking at, again, orientation of the building. Again, I'm talking about maintenance and operation, maintenance and transportation, the Ruby Halliburton building. There's a lot going on there, and commend Paul for putting a lot of effort into that, trying to get us where we need to be. There was also some talk about the bond items for Bryan High School, and encountered some snags there as well that we'll just have to get through. We're going to have to look at again, prioritizing what we need to do to make sure that we don't undo some of the things that we were going to do under the bond, because there's some underlying issues, including ADA issues, that may require some extensive unforeseen efforts. So that was discussed as well, and again, another major challenge as far as trying to figure out how we're going to do that. Probably going to get some new eyes on this to take another look and see what all we need and how much it's likely to cost. And then we also talked a little bit about grounds maintenance building that's going to be right there near Sadbury Intermediate, and so there was some discussion about how we're going to deal with that building, whether it's going to stay, and how we might dress it up a little bit, because it will be very visible from Sadbury Intermediate. Did I leave anything out?
I don't think so.
I think that sounds good. That was very thorough.
Who's over comments, Kevin?
Kevin was actually not there on Friday. His daughters were competing in the SEC
Oh, yeah. The
Equestrian
equestrians.
Championship, so.
That's right.
So that's why you had Zoom. Kevin would have took you to bed. Yeah. What's it called?
It's Kevin's fault that you didn't get
Kevin's fault that you had Zoom with no food and whatever.
Congratulations on the girls. That's very wonderful.
Right, and the superintendent.
Yes, good evening, everyone. This is always my favorite part of the meeting, is to just spend a couple of minutes bragging on our students. Although it's often very difficult because we have so many wonderful things happening, it's hard to narrow the focus. So I'm going to start with, this seems to be a reoccurring event for us when our students are taking their athletic talent to the next level. In this picture, you see Rudder High School senior Asani McGee signing to play her letter of intent for D1 volleyball. That's at Presbyterian College, which is in South Carolina. She had a huge turnout of family and friends, lots of support, and it was just another great day to be a Rudder Ranger in this moment. Additionally, our Bryan High School academic UIL team placed second over in the competition over the weekend. You can see how many kids were participating. I saw lots of information coming out on Twitter. Many of these kids participated in multiple events and represented our district so well. Also, with athletic, you see some photos here of some Rudder students. This is the Prairie View A1 relays that happened over the weekend. We had Bryan High School students there competing as well. But I just wanted to take a moment and tell you a story about the student in the middle. This is a Rudder High School student named Nate Figures. And I was talking to Coach Ezar actually at the signing for the volleyball student, and he was talking about how Nate was not participating in track. So they encouraged him, just come on out, try it, you might like it, you never know. So he goes out and he competes in the high jump, his very first time out, no training, no real practice, not much guidance at all, and he jumped 6'8" at that meet.
Oh, my.
So in his second event, which was last weekend at Prairie View, he beat his personal record, and he's jumping now at 6'9". So what this hidden talent, this is just a perfect example of how important it is to tap these students and to be involved and to, give it a try. You never know. In fact, this has caused so much interest because he's a football player. Now we have college coaches looking at him because they're noticing him on the track and field. So lots of attention and lots of excitement for many of our athletes. They came home with gold, silver, bronze, you name it. In fact, Dr. Ibarra's son was there that day competing as well as a long distance runner. So great representation for Bryan ISD again at the Prairie View Relays. Moving on, our Ffa Department, our ag students have been certainly very busy. Many of them showed their animals and competed in different competitions at the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo, as well as Brazos County. And the picture on the left, you can see Charlie Josie, who represented us so well as she won Grand Champion, and Will Hurd, who won our Reserve Champion in Commercial Steers. Again, this is Brazos County. And then the other picture, that's a rotor student also, her name is Isis Agnew, and she won first place for agriculture equipment, class truck accessories, bumpers, headache racks, toolboxes, and replacement beds in Houston. So we're so proud of our students, again, very well represented in both livestock shows.
Wow.
Yes, super exciting. And then our SFA Odyssey, this is our middle school students here competing in underwater robotics. The Sea Perch team qualified for the international competition in Maryland after finishing second place in the regional competition in Georgetown. So excited about the students and their progress in representing us in that capacity. Moving on, this was something really new and different. This is the Lions Pride Sports and the World's Strongest Man named Mark Henry. He actually stopped by Ross Elementary School last Friday before taking part in the United Way of Brazos Valley's Spike 2-night wrestling event that occurred on Saturday. Our young Ross Raccoons were so inspired by the wrestler's words. He was a motivational speaker, if you will, including our Bryan Collegiate student. We have a student professional wrestler named Mia Friday, so she made an appearance for us. And they also witnessed a fantastic surprise, because little did we know that one of our Ross teachers, Abraham O'Day, revealed his secret identity as a Lions Pride wrestling referee for the first time. So the kids had a great time. It was a great turnout, and the media was actually present, so we got a lot of attention from them as well.
Wow.
And then finally, we have our showcase. Our annual showcase is on the road this year. Because of COVID and the disruption, we were not able to have it indoors this year. It was supposed to be back in February, but we were really worried about the virus. So we're taking it on the road this Friday night. We hope that everyone in our community will join us. Again, it's first Friday, downtown Bryan, prime real estate. We're right there in the center of everything from 5:30 to 8 p.m. We're super excited about that. And the one final event that we invite everyone in our community to join us on April 9th from 10 to 2 at Bryan High School to celebrate our Bryan ISD Art Fest. So again, so many great things happening and such a celebration, and a great day to be here.
Would you back that up to the thing in downtown Bryan? Are we on the roof of that building? Is that what?
Only you.
Okay.
The rest of us were down, no, we're down on this, it's actually 26th
Oh,
Street.
I know.
And,
Between Subway and whatever
yes,
that
between
place is.
Subway and RX Pizza, every single campus will be represented like we've done in the past. Everyone will have a booth, if you will. Now, it's not nearly as big as the space that we had at Rudder High School, so it's going to be a scaled-down version, but still very excited and so thrilled that Bryan ISD and Destination Bryan included us in this event. So please join us if you can.
Well, and it's important to note that as a downtown person, they close the roads at 4 o'clock. So you cannot park anywhere downtown after 4 o'clock. You need to park over at the county parking lot or in the parking garage. I'll pick you up. Get you a bit.
Ms. Dwayne is offering a shuttle service. Yes, parking may be a bit of a challenge, and we also have the old TESC building, if you don't mind walking that far. That's also a good spot for parking. But we do expect a big turnout. The weather's supposed to be great, and it's always a great day to celebrate and showcase Bryan ISD.
Unfortunately, I will not be able to attend, but
Jill,
be
we'll
there.
talk about your reunion.
Sure. I know it's going to be an exciting opportunity.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
All right, thank you. And next up, we'll move into consent agenda.
I move approval of all the items listed on the consent agenda as presented. Second.
I have a motion by Ms. Swain, a second by Ms. Davis, or Dr. Davis. If there's no further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries as moved. And next up, we have 8A, Human Resources. Consider approval of recommendation for professional contracts.
Good evening. On behalf of the superintendent, as well as supervisors in the district, the Human Resources Office has prepared a list of contract recommendation renewals that you have in front of you. These are our teachers, our assistant principals, counselors, coordinators, all the professional positions in the district that wasn't presented at the previous board meeting. And so they're there for you to review.
Thank you.
I move approval of the recommendation of the superintendent to renew and issue non-Chapter 21 contracts, probationary contracts, and term contracts for the 2022-2023 school year for professional staff.
Second.
I have a motion by Dr. Harlan and a second by Ms. Benford. If there's no further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries as moved.
Thank you.
Yep. The board will now convene in closed session to discuss the following items as allowed by Texas Government Code Chapter 551, .074, .071, .087, and .072. No voting will take place in the closed meeting. Any action the board wishes to take as a result of discussion in closed session will take place after the board reconvenes in the open meeting. It is now 6:52. board reconvened in open session at, what time it is? 8:08. No action was taken in closed session. And we have one motion to consider in open session.
I move that we hire Ginger Carabine as the superintendent of schools and approve the terms of the superintendent contract as discussed in closed session.
Second.
Third.
I have a motion by Dr. Harlan and a second by Mr. Stasny. If there is no further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries, it's moved.
Thank you very much.
Let's go do a family picture.
And with that, we are adjourned.